like back in 2016. I was mining Bitcoin. If you get one, you get so attached to it that you don't want to sell it, right? I don't know. It's like a cultural movement. That's what I'm seeing.
What's good, everyone? Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Web3 Experience. Every week, we meet with the most innovative minds across culture, business, and technology to discuss how Web3 is unlocking a new era of opportunity for entrepreneurs, businesses, and creators alike.
By speaking with the builders of tomorrow and hearing their unique perspectives on Web3 and the world at large, we aim to break down the many existing societal frameworks that blockchains aim to disrupt.
I'm your host, Mosey.
And I'm Freelance.
And welcome to the show. Welcome to the Web3 Experience. I'm your host, Mosey.
Freelance here.
And today we're here with Erod, also known as, or Eddie, also known as Erod. You know, we get kind of mixed up the realities. But how are you, Eddie? Good to have you.
Doing great, Glad to see you guys.
Yeah. In what, like a week?
Since our last Beer and Learn event in Miami.
Yeah.
MCA, we kill it.
Obviously, I know you. Mo knows you. We know how involved, how in-depth you've really taken your life into Web3. Can you give a little background of that journey for any listeners out there?
Actually, everything started, I'm originally from Caracas, Venezuela. So I'll say everything started like back in 2016. I was mining Bitcoin back then. I remember I was using, I think it was like a S5 and mine or something like that. So yes, that's how my journey started in crypto. Especially it was very important there in Venezuela. It was really hard to get access to US dollars. So mining Bitcoin electricity was pretty much free, right? I think, I think we're paying back then probably like $2 a month, something like that. So it was literally just free, just to mine Bitcoin. Then I stumbled into Dash. I have a few friends there that have some businesses that were taking payments in like Subway, just to, so you were able to buy sandwiches just using Dash. And then like fast forward, I got introduced into Ethereum like back in like 2017. Then all the altcoins and and all the fun stuff. I remember then fast forward, I moved to Boston. So I remember back in the days I was going to these MIT events, right? And that's when I started getting into the rabbit hole. I remember back then I met Gary Gensler. He was actually teaching classes at MIT. So that's how everything started. So I started doing some DeFi stuff like 2017, 2018. Then the whole bear market actually came. And then I'll say like in parallel, was actually, I'm a big sport car and comic collector as well. Pokemon and all the stuff, sneaker and all the fun stuff. So then I remember, I started learning about like crypto kitties. That was back in MIT, but then that actually didn't click to me back then until I started learning about like crypto punks when they first came to me. I remember fast forward right now, we're in like 2019, 2020. And then I was like, damn, like 5 ETH for a crypto punk. That's like, that's a lot of money. I remember, back then I didn't want to spend my ETH into something that I really didn't understood. But then I started like learning. I went through the rabbit hole, and to me, it was, it was like mixing both of my passions. Like back then, it was like crypto and the whole DeFi stuff, and then bringing all the collectible aspect. And then what it really clicked to me, it was when I was reading this article at the New Yorker. I think it was released July 2020, and the article, it was about the Bored Apes, right? And then I was like, damn. So I started reading the article. It was like super interesting. Everything was happening with the community. So I started joining like Clubhouse. And then I was seeing like people jumping, from one space to the other ones with the picture of a monkey, and then I was like, that's when everything kind of like clicked, and I was like, damn, I need to get three of these guys, because of my experience trading sport cars. I was like, if you get one, you get so attached to it that you don't want to sell it, right? And then I said the second one is just to flip it and recover. But then what I learned is like you have to get three. So one to recover your investment, the second one for long term, and then the one that you keep forever. So that's how I just fast forward. I kind of like start from 2016, and then how I stumble into NFTs and in particular Bored Apes. And yeah, and then through Bored Apes, I have the opportunity to meet amazing people here in Miami. So I think everything like came together.
That's awesome. It's kind of ironic that you said the Gary Gensler at MIT. I've watched that. It's on EduX. I think EduX. You can watch it on
YouTube too. Yeah,
and you can watch the whole course. And Gary Gensler's teaching intro to blockchain and how it works and different mechanisms. And yeah, it's very very. If you're a newbie in NFTs in crypto, I definitely suggest you should look at that because he's the one that's gonna be putting these regulations in place, which is pretty. It's interesting how it's taken them so long to understand it and kind of put forth some regulation, even though he taught a course that long ago on exactly what's coming. And yeah, so thanks for sharing that, Eddie. It's great.
No, to me it's fascinating, because what's like I don't know. It's like he was so back then. It was so easy to approach to these people right now that they're like doing like really big things. Like Gary Gensler, on the SEC, and then other people that back then they were just starting. I remember Enigma. I don't know if you remember that protocol back then. It was just starting. Algorand as well. I remember the guys actually started back in MIT, and then they have like open classes where you can just hang out there with the founders and all this stuff. So it was really cool, like having that exposure. And also, and I feel that right now, this is kind of like what we have in Miami with the Bored Ape community is like, I feel that we are so, I'll say grateful that, we all get to know each other because of the Bored Ape PFP that we were using in Twitter, and then that's how we get to find each other and hang out, and like,
What compelled you to join the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and did you get into CryptoPunks as well, or did you pass on punks and then something about Bored Apes really drew you in?
yes, I passed on punks because I didn't. To me, punks it was more about like art. They were the first one, right? But I didn't know anyone that actually had one, and I felt compelling because of the whole article in the New Yorker on how the community was getting together around, the people that owns the Bored Apes. And then, I mean, I had the opportunity that whenever I got the Bored Apes, actually, I remember there was this guy, David Goldberg. He's here in Miami, so I started putting together this Twitter group. It's called Magic City Ape. Some of us know, know what I'm talking about. So then I remember we got our first meeting in Komodo, and that was when I started to understand the sense of community. Not only that we were hanging out in Twitter, but actually that we are here in Miami, and then we get to know each other, hang out. Like I think it once again it was mixing the passion that I had for the technology back then. In like I said, in Boston, it was easy to find those communities, just going to MIT, but then moving into Miami, I was like, oh, I may don't have that anymore that I have there until, luckily enough, I got into Bored Ape and I got to introduce to a really nice and interesting people. And I think the big difference is like you have the technology, right, of the blockchain, but you also have the culture, right? To me, that's those two like together is I don't know, it's like a cultural movement. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. And it's more it's easy for people to relate to a picture of something than to relate to a protocol like, I don't know, Chainlink. Oh,
And
I feel so attached to, the code behind,
you mentioned that you're from Venezuela, so and that you were doing some activations to help the Latin American community and maybe get the Bored Ape name out there in LATAM. So what have you done, in that side of the world, and what do you see? How do you see yourself pursuing it further and pushing
Yeah.
education there?
So it's actually pretty interesting what because like I say, I think just the image of the apes to me is kind of like, it's cool. I like it, it's like, and I relate to the guy that I got. I think he's like super aesthetic. So I bet everyone think the same, right? About their ape. But one of the things that I got the opportunity to do, it was to spread kind of like the NFT culture back to Latin America by empowering artists in different places and then just have graffiti. So I remember when I was a kid, we have this group in Venezuela that it was called Dinamo, and then we were just doing like graffitis, right, around our neighborhood. People back then, they hated it, but that's something that actually stayed with me. It was like, it's kind of like art, it's culture, it's like, I don't know. So that always stick with me from my childhood. And then when I got the ownership of this ape, right, I say, so what about if we start spreading the picture of these NFTs all around Latin America? And then I think it was like twofold, right? It was twofold because it gave me the opportunity to connect with more apes in the whole community that wanted to see their NFT painted in different places in the world, but actually gave me the opportunity to connect back to those artists. And for example, I think we have painted around like 120 apes around LATAM, in between Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and Venezuela. So it's really interesting to see what is the impact that you're causing to the artists back then. Some of them have bought a house. Other ones in Argentina have started their own NFT business and all that. So yes. And also, because I think, Lance, you were in part of those groups as well. It's just connecting to each other whenever they're painting the wall. It's like, it's like looking at the whole experience. I think it's kind of cool.
Well, one thing that I noticed too, I mean, just from talking about when you bought the ape and getting involved in Miami, now obviously I know the projects that you're working on, but also spreading this awareness in Latin America and getting connected with these different artists and connecting them with people in other areas of the world that have NFTs that want to see their art displayed. It really sounds like there's a common thread of this community in there. How did you feel, like, obviously you experienced being a part of a community and now you've kind of organized a little bit of your own community as well. What do you see the value in that?
I think that the value on organizing these communities, you're saying, is like, I mean, I see it because it gave me an opportunity to know people that if it weren't because of NFT, I wouldn't be able to do it. So it also gave me the opportunity to work together. For example, on the ape holder, it's kind of like to have a project in common, right? It's like, okay, let's all have something in common that we were going to be mobilizing, have fun, helping others. So it's kind of like it's making those connections even stronger, through just having those pictures in different places in Latin America. And on the other side of organizing the communities with the artists, is kind of like that sense that we are actually helping other people that may don't have the same opportunities that we have here in the States. So I think it was a little bit of both, is how we can still have fun with our having our pictures, I mean, of the NFT painted in different places, but also how we can make an impact. So it's like both ways, and it's getting to know the artists. Sometimes, I have like calls with the artists, I know their families. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a little bit of both that philanthropic side, but also just the fun, because I think all of us with the NFT, we're just like, having fun. Like, it brings me back to childhood.
And you said earlier, like how people get kind of attached to their ape, right? And it's like kind of their alter ego. And it made me think it's like you guys painting that ape's face, graffiti all over Venezuela, all over South America. Imagine if it was somebody just like painting their face on it, and like what I'm saying is like the ape is a digital attachment to you that helps with like marketing a business, or there people are going to see that ape, and if it's tied back to a brand, and we're going to talk about your brand, like it's instant marketing rather than if somebody was to try to market themselves as like the CEO of a company and just put their face on everything. It's not a good way to connect with the culture. So it's like a really good play, to incorporate art as your forefront in a business, but especially if that art is already part of an established community, right? Because you can leverage that brand name, and then any apes that go into South America instantly know who that is, and that you've been there. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of like going to that point, that alter ego. It's like, I remember back then when I didn't have my ape, it's like, I was like super quiet, right? In Twitter. So you kind of like, you have all those ideas, right? But it's like kind of like, as an immigrant, sometimes you don't want to like expose yourself because you're always afraid, oh, what people are going to say about what I write or whatever. So just having that's another thing that we can talk about later. But it's like, just by having that,
people that we think that are going to notice it and see it, right? It's different from like traditional, like your ape and your digital identity. You can express yourself, you can maybe curse a little more, or like say things that you wouldn't want to say on like LinkedIn or Facebook, so like it's like there's so many people on Twitter that are in their 40s, in their 50s, that have these completely separate lives, but then they come into this world of culture and like a global community where we all agree on stuff, right? And they're able to be themselves and express themselves, and that's a really cool factor as well.
Also the fact that you're not alone, that you also are part of this path, this group of people that somehow shares some of the values that I mean, it's like not the values, but your hobbies, or, the way you see things. I don't know. It's just like, it's interesting.
And after all this time too, with like there's so much friction in the market, and like how you use the protocols and people getting scammed and the markets being so volatile, it's like whoever's still here, we've weathered all these storms, and if we can still see that people are still building and are confident, that brings you back to the core mindset that we all had that kind of brought us together. And it's like we believe in blockchain and we believe in a decentralized world, but this was like the first community that really put it all together, with the art, with the tokenization, like tokenomics, the contracts, everything, right? Bored Ape was like the pinnacle, and everybody built off of their roadmap and way of doing things, to a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Have you connected with, and maybe they would reach out more to the artist, but let's say someone saw the apes or something that you guys had painted in Latin America, and then they reach out and they try to learn a little bit more about that? Like, has that happened?
Yes, I have. I have some artists that have actually reached out. I would love to do a graffiti of, it's kind of like, I would like to replicate what this guy is doing in Palermo, but I'm a part of this small town in Argentina. So can we partner together and do it? And then I have to say, I have gotten a scam a few times also. I've been giving money to people to paint something. They never show up, but that's part of the process, right? It's like, out of 10 people that you reach out, probably, or that reach out to you, probably like 3 are scams. The other 6 are great people. Yeah, so that's part of so I have gotten like reach out.
On the topic of utilizing IP and using that as your brand image and profile pictures, how have you utilized, your ape and your IP and built a brand around it that you can see growing with the greater Bored Ape community and the NFT community?
So one of the projects that I'm super passionate about right now is Bored Coffee Lab. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing the IP to life in a form of a coffee bag. So I have a few. This is just one that I haven't released yet, but so that's how I have used it. I actually, all my teachers are like custom made. I have my ape like in different places. So also that's funny because when I started with the Latin American graffitis, in my mind, it's like I want this guy to be known in different places in Latin America. So later, like a year or 2 years later, whenever I open a coffee shop or something like that, it's like, oh shit, this is this is the coffee shop of the guy that's painted like in different places in Latin America, right? So right now, what I'm doing is, let me just go back to the Board Coffee Labs. Is I'm not only bringing my IP to life, but I also inviting other members of the community from, the Latin Apes, which is another community that we have. We have around like 40 apes from different places in Latin America. We have the Magic City Apes. And then what I'm doing is, again, it's like I'm connecting artists, right? Because some of the bags that we have, I mean, for example, this is a nice looking good dude right here, Lev Atlas. So usually what I'm doing is, this is a window for artists in Latin America to, express themselves, but actually connecting them with the IP holders, in this case with the Bored Ape owner, or also like, goblins as well. We just the goblins
So cool.
last week.
That
So
was sick.
yeah, so that's what we're doing. So what we're doing is 10% of each sale. So 3% it goes to the artist. So essentially they will make royalties on every sale, right? But these royalties are like, it's something that I promise, and it's something that I won't take away. Not like how we see in it right now in the NFT space with the zero royalties. So, and also another 3%, it goes to a nonprofit organization that I help. Nonprofit is in Venezuela. They take care of like kids, and the other 3% it goes to the ape holder, which sometimes they say, I don't really want that 3%, just give it to the nonprofit, or just give it to the artist because I really like the way the bag came out. So that's my passion project right now. And then, like I say, eventually, what I'm doing in the background is documenting all the process so that can be used as a playbook for any consumer brand, essentially.
You mentioned earlier that how if you came out with physical coffee labs around the South American area, that people that saw your ape in the past would be more willing to maybe give you business. And that brings me back to the complex that I always tell people. It's like now using NFTs and using like creative culture and artists, we can actually create brands that separate from like the mainstream core brands that have always been on the same billboards, been in the same commercials. Like you watch a football game nowadays, you watch anything really live. I don't watch much live TV, but every time I do, the same commercials, the same people you're seeing. It's because like the full advertising market is completely monopolized, right? To hit these big brands that can afford these slots. And what you're doing is giving small like artists and local people the opportunity to get their name out there, right? And maybe create a product that can drive attention by being authentic and being different, because a lot of industries are still stuck in that. Like golf only has literally like 4 to 6 sponsors that are on every single person, and now there's more smaller golf brands and apparel brands and small brands that are coming out, and you see more fun on people's like polos, and the bags are colorful, and there's different people are personalizing things more. And that's like, as we shift this as a society, people have these digital identities, and it's going to personalize their physical a lot more. And I see like in the metaverse, it's all going to be kind of colliding. Yeah. So that's really, really cool and important what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and I like it. And then one of the things, like you say, we don't want to be in a big billboard. We want to be in the little street of the barrio that, whenever you're painting that graffiti, you see, and I have videos of kids just like having fun, seeing the artists like painting, whatever, the apes and all that. So it's more, they rely more to that. So we're just using a different canvas I'll say, when you are involved in the community from the inside out.
Some of those countries, I mean, they lack so much. They lack so much opportunity and the infrastructure to provide the youth opportunity. You know, so if you have a brand that can step in and help some youth, some creative minds find opportunity, because there's talented people everywhere, right? They just don't have a podium or a stage to really highlight themselves. So kudos to you for really trying to get more people involved in the creation process. And like, brands are always scrambling to like hire Fiverr artists or create something, but if you really tap into like your local culture and the community that you have around you, a lot of the times that's where you'll find
100%.
And it's purposeful. It's like you're giving back with a reason too. Like you're choosing these artists based on their locale and you know, helping people in that community rather than just like, oh, someone come help me out for my brand, right? And you've got the royalties going to the artists and royalties going to these nonprofit associations. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and like I said, I'm having fun because it keep me connected with the artist, which I still have that artistic vein myself. Like I said, like back when I was a kid, just doing the graffiti stuff. And then it also keep me connected with each of the IP holders. So there's for example, this is another bag. Hasn't come out yet, but this is a guy that we have in our chat, Snowflake, right? So one of the cool thing is like you actually showing that, them at a personal level. He's a radiologist, right? So as you can tell, this is like half of the picture is like, like a radiology thing. And then he also like golf club, like play golf. So I try to incorporate a little bit of every person in each design, so it has like like I say, have that connection with the IP holder, get to know them like more personally, but also the artist. And lastly, and I think most important, is the nonprofit. That was another goal that I had, but it was very challenging. I was trying to onboard different nonprofits in Latin America into Web3 so they can receive donations.
Yeah.
So I was like setting them up with the ENS domain and all this stuff. But then I kind of like stopped because it was like super difficult to, they're not tech savvy. So it was kind of like,
I'm very skeptical too. I was helping a project out last year, reaching out to different nonprofits. It was a women-based project, and there's just a lot of skepticism, especially back last year. There was a lot of skepticism towards NFTs. Nobody really wanted to get involved. They also didn't understand it. It's like, and now it's just helping businesses and helping nonprofits and helping people understand, more of why it's important and how it can provide opportunities and, financial opportunity, donations of that such to countries that probably would have never, gotten that audience on Twitter or on Discord or something like that. So it's just finding a new medium to push forth whatever it is. If it's fundraising, if it's a business, if it's a personal, brand. Yeah.
100%. The other thing, it was that back then gas fees were like super expensive. So then she was like, damn, Eddie, I have to pay like $6 just to send the money out. And then that's like a meal for like a kid or two. So I'd rather you send me that via, other way. But right now it's probably worth it.
Kind of gets down to that conversation is like, is ETH or Ethereum, or are these blockchains scalable yet? Or is the technology doing its course, just because like the evolution and the friction that it takes to use it is still not there yet and it's still present. So it's like, as we evolve, I'm sure the friction will die down, right?
100%, yeah. Right now it's like, it's better, right? On that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much. Any other like...
I mean, in terms of like crypto and NFTs in general, or I mean, any part of Web3, like what are you excited for now, especially that we're in like this kind of downturn in the market? Like what kind of things are you looking forward to that maybe you've learned about something, you're like, wow, that's a really cool idea, I can't wait till it's more realistic, or just new projects, anything you've heard of that you're like, oh, this is a really cool like innovation or someone trying to make a difference?
So I think as far I'm just like super focused into. I'm actually glad, to be quite honest, the market is that way, believe it or not, because it delete all the distractions outside of the Borg Coffee Lab. So as a matter of fact, I'm working with this guy in Austria, right? I forgot what the name of the company is. It's more his name is Mario. I think you know him, Mosey. The company is I'll tell you right now. Just bear with me because those guys are amazing what they're doing in augmented reality. So, huh?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Amazing XR.
Yeah,
That's their business. So what we're gonna do, huh?
yeah, they're great. The CEO is great.
Yeah, no, that he's awesome. So what I'm pretty excited about is like, because the way I'm selling the coffee bags and all that is very like Web2, to be quite honest. So it's basically you go into my website, you get the bag. I think the only Web3 I have is, well, the IP. And also, if you get like 12 bags, I'll give you an NFT that will come with some activations like coffee tasting event,
Nice.
some coffee shops in the Centerland, Sandbox, and all that. But I want to take it to another step forward. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start digitalizing all of the bags. So we'll have like one-on-one, like each bag collection is a limited of like 2,000, right? So I'll have like so it'll be always will be 2,000, and then what I'll do is I'll sell the digital bag in, let's say, OpenSea or any other marketplace where people can buy it. You can display it in on Cyber or whatever you want to do with that bag. And then if you want to redeem, it's kind of similar to what Artifact
Yeah.
did with their merch or Adidas or something like that. So it's kind of like, incorporating that thing so I can be a little bit more of like that Web 3 or Web 2.5. I think that's basically what we're doing right now. Let's say Web 2.5. So I'm pretty excited about that. So that's in the roadmap as well. And then eventually it will be cool if we can do some animations or something similar to what 10KT is doing, that you can, what is the name of that project? I forget the guy that is, huh?
KTF. 10 KTF.
10KTF. Yes, eventually when you can get a coffee bag and then you can buy the thing, you put okay, I want to have my NFT in the bag so we can work up, whatever. And then what I do is I can well, still, this isn't still in the work, but let's say you get your NFT with your 100 bags, and then those are yours, and then you can claim it whatever you want, right? So everyone will have the opportunity to have whatever NFT they want with the design they want. For this case, it'll be just coffee products, right? So that's another thing that I'm kind of like very passionate on what I'm doing. So I think the next evolution it will be on how we make this technology more user friendly, right? Because we understand the UX UI kind of sucks right now. So that's what I'm very passionate about. How do we take it from here? Because we're a small group of people that is in NFTs and crypto. So how do we take it from here to the masses, right? So it's kind of similar to what Starbucks is doing right now with the membership approach using NFT with Odyssey. I think that's the company they're partnering with. So that's what I'm pretty excited, to be honest. How do we see these use cases? And yes, and that's what I'm like passionate about the coffee as well, because this could be a playbook for any brand.
Yeah.
And then only few people are doing it. And then the ones that are doing it, they're like, Adidas, Artifacts. And then how we can take this and make it easy for small businesses to, implement it and then just use this technology, right?
Yeah.
Long answer.
Yeah, no, but it's true. We need to become
Makes
more
sense.
frictionless and easy for them. And what you're doing with the physical digital connection is how we're going to get there, right? It's like having these events and having the physical locations in the future. And honestly, when those are feasible and you can do those types of things, and I think there's a lot of companies with funding that are creating that right now. And once mainstream people start walking by these stores and seeing it, it's like, oh, what's this? And then they start seeing that, oh, this company formed from a global Web3 community that started through NFTs. And that's gonna keep occurring. And then I think as that happens, the tech will become a lot more seamless and easy for people to use on a mass scale. Yeah.
100%. So the way I see it for collectibles, I think is, like I said before, I'm still collecting sport cards, but one of the things that hold me back, you want a car, but then you don't have the space to, keep it. Or sometimes I have my wife, it's like, how many stuff you're going to bring to the house. So it'd be cool if you can buy that, have a digital representation of that LeBron rookie card, and then you just have that sitting in a vault, which I think that's what eBay is currently working on right now, is just to have that vault where it will be kind of like integrated with the
an escrow for products, like after
for products, but then you can trade, right? So in the case of the coffee, I can have the digital bag. It's a limited collection, so I may have someone just buying like the 200, and then there won't be any more. And then that can be tradable. Then, it's like you can sell the digital without having, the physical stuff. So from the collectible space, the velocity of money on those trade is like, is I don't even think about like, that's why I say I'm glad the market is the way it is, right? So we get to build and do cool stuff while other people is like,
More time to focus on what really is important for bringing mass adoption. Like, we're all working on our own stuff, right? Newsletters, whether it be your own networks, educational curriculum, stuff like that, consulting businesses. It's all to help people understand it more and be more prepared for the next 5 to 10 years, because it's coming, it's here. People are integrating it. It's pretty. Web3 is integrating with all the biggest industries quietly, but
I mean, we saw 2 weeks ago. And obviously, it's a pilot of a pilot. It's like in early stages, but the house that was sold as an NFT, right? And that kind of goes back to what you're saying about, maybe different products, but still something that, you're selling this asset or this piece, but really what changed hands originally was the NFT for it, right? Yeah. And now this person who owns this NFT now has the access to this house in South Carolina. So it's pretty exciting to see that kind of stuff.
Secondary markets are just being created everywhere, and it's allowing for stuff that is usually very rigorously trading hands, like housing and high quality assets, can now hopefully be traded, digitally and more seamless. But obviously we're going to need the help. That's why we're in Web 2.5. Web 3 is when we have these protocols decentralized or with the help of centralized means that help foster this relationship, like you're saying with the eBay, like an escrow vault, that if these two parties agree, they clear on this side, they clear on this side, and then the package or whatever is sent, right? So that's the future. We all know it, and getting prepared, right?
So some of the stuff, it's not even going to be, I know we keep saying like Web3 and all that, but always going to stay Web 2.5, because you always need the physical infrastructure, right? Either to storage that physical product or anything like that. I think through Web3 applications probably will be in gaming, right? I guess, right? But anything else, it will be a mix of those both worlds.
I'm going to get into, next time we talk, we'll hopefully in person, we'll get into the gaming and everything. But thank you for joining us, Eddie. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we appreciate your time.
Always.
Definitely. Thanks for hopping on, Eddie.
No. Always a pleasure, man. Yeah.
Baby, hopefully hoping for good health.
That's like, I have all his merch and everything ready,
The Baby Ape Club.
It ended right there.
Oh.